Have you ever wondered how can you see through a narcissist mask? Just the other day, we did a video about narcissists and the mask they've fallen in love with, the mask for the new supply, and then what can you actually do to make them see the mask? Now, first and foremost, just a side note, want to make sure you understand it's not my recommendation that you walk up to a narcissist and you say, hey, I think you're a narcissist, or you start accusing them of narcissistic personality disorder. One, you can't diagnose, and as a result, they'll flip it back on you. The other aspect is oftentimes their behaviors will become more aggressive or more abusive, especially if they start researching it and figuring out, okay, this is actually what I'm showing up as. I don't like that. Let me gaslight the other person, flip it around. You might also have them leave. The thing you need to understand is if you cannot get a narcissist to actually acknowledge small, simple things, like the fact that he's a liar. If you can't get him to work through the piece of him lying, you're not going to be able to get him to work through the piece of him being a narcissist. That's much bigger bombshell to drop on someone than just simply the fact of like, hey, you lied to me. Let's talk through this. I didn't lie to you. And then off you go. Okay. So you need to understand that there's different levels of understanding, first and foremost, of making sure that you don't just walk up and say, hey, I think you're a narcissist. But we're going to talk through a couple different ways today of maybe some aspects that you could even use to try to get underneath the mask, to be able to have the narcissist see maybe something that's inside and see where that goes from there. Okay, so we're going to discover and talk through 4 crucial different strategies to help you unveil their true behavior, their true nature. Maybe it'll give you the clarity to make the right decision of stay in the relationship, not stay in the relationship. Maybe it'll open up a door for the narcissist. Who knows? The whole object of this is to be able to see underneath the mask so that you can make the decision that you need to make for you. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness and break people free from the mental anguish of being with a toxic person. The obsessive thinking that has you up late at night, getting sleepless nights at all, has you losing weight, that has high stress, high anxiety, all of those different things come from being in toxic relationships. My goal is to help break you out mentally and emotionally so you can be free and you can ultimately be the person that you're called to be. So let's dive into these 4 things today. Number 1 is self-identification as a narcissist. Be like, wait a second, you just told us not to call him a narcissist. I'm not saying call him a narcissist, so bear with me for a second. Okay, encouraging the narcissist to actually have self-reflection and actually self-identify some of the things can offer valuable insights into what's going on underneath the surface, like behavior, mindset, motivation, all those pieces. It's interesting to be able to see how a narcissist actually perceives himself. Because a lot of times there's a disconnect there of what's reality versus what's perception and what this actually looks like. And so you'll see a narcissist with self-awareness or the lack thereof will end up telling you a lot of stuff about the narcissist himself. Okay, so like there might be this piece of where he's not willing to actually identify who he is, not knowing who he is. There might be this level of not willing to have self-introspection or actually look at behaviors. So with this, a lot of it is asking questions going back to the behavior. So like, why do you think that happened? Why did you do this? Like that seemed to come across this way. Did you notice this? Like start trying to see like, are they actually acknowledging or seeing their reactions, their responses? Now you can have it to a place of saying where you're going to actually call them out, but not in a way that is attacking. Like, I think you're a narcissist. Don't do that, okay? But we've seen different people that have used the aspect and used the question of asking them, to what level do you identify with this statement? I am a narcissist. Like, that seems kind of weird. Yeah, because you're not actually accusing or saying you're a narcissist. You're saying, how do you identify? Now, it's interesting because sometimes you can navigate the conversation using yourself as well. Be like, it was interesting. The other day I learned about narcissism and someone asked me like what level I identify as being a narcissist. I didn't really know how to take that. I didn't really know what to think about that. Have you ever thought about that? What level would you identify? And all of a sudden you flipped it around in a non-confrontational way just to be able to see what's his response. What's he actually going to say? Sometimes the response is going to reveal a lot about self-awareness where I have no clue what it is. That's not me. Like, yeah. No, I might be a narcissist, and continue to move forward. You're going to see different pieces open up. You might have them deny it entirely, might have them embrace it without hesitation. Both responses provide a window just into his self-perception. Does he actually look internally? Does he actually ask himself like the hard questions? Is he actually looking underneath, or is it just hidden? This kind of walks into the second point. And the second point is this piece of uncovering their biggest flaw. Now, did you ever have a time where people had to go around the room and say, like, hey, like, this is my biggest flaw? This is the thing that I struggle with. Maybe you've seen it in work, and maybe you've seen it in questionnaires, different pieces like that. And sometimes you have narcissists that struggle with expressing anything like that because that has to admit a weakness. That has to admit something that they're not good at. That has to admit something that they're actually wrong at. So, like, the narcissist is like, my biggest flaw is that I'm too loyal. Be like, that's not a flaw. But you see a narcissist oftentimes that won't be able to figure out what the flaw is because they're only looking at the mask, which again is made to look perfect, right? So asking a narcissist about their biggest flaw oftentimes can expose pieces of vulnerabilities and the self-perception. You can start to see, wait a second, this is how he acts, this is how he's responded, this is what he's actually engaged with, this is what's actually going on, when in reality, he's not really seeing it. He's not really understanding what's actually there. So narcissists oftentimes are hiding what's actually there. They're hiding their biggest flaw. Because like, if I showed that, nobody would like me. If I showed that, I couldn't be perfect. If I showed that, then I would be wrong and I have to deal with the guilt and the shame of it. Narcissists oftentimes have this piece of fragile self-esteem. Beneath just the confidence, the confident mask that's there, it's like, nope, I'm worried that if someone actually sees me for who I am, then they won't like me. So I need to make sure they continue to believe the lie that I put out there that I am a good person. Think about it this way. You might have this spot where you're going to ask and interact with this other person. You're going to say, hey, what do you think is the biggest flaw that you struggle with? And just to be able to see what is his response going to be. Because it might provide a glimpse into insecurities, into self-image. It might be where he's downplaying his flaws. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I drink every once in a while, and you're like, pretty much I saw you drink like all the time. Like, you see different aspects of this. It might be deflecting from it of like, okay, like he gives you like an answer that's not really a flaw at all. It might be just highlighting for you to be able to understand, hey, he's struggling to be able to see any type of imperfection. Like, he's not willing to actually acknowledge it. He's not willing to actually see it. Okay? All right, moving on. We're going to run out of time. Point number 3, setting boundaries and observing reactions will be point number 3. You see, setting boundaries is a really important way to just get a gauge of a narcissist behavior, or get a gauge of like, hey, is this person toxic or not? Like, this technique helps you identify the manipulative tendencies when you see him push the boundaries, when you see him try to overcome your boundaries, when you see him get upset, when you set boundaries. All these different things help you understand, wait a second, there's something here. Like, there's a little piece of the mask that I'm able to see underneath because he's not willing to actually engage in an honest way with actually appreciating some of my boundaries. Okay? Like, sometimes you'll have control over you, I'm going to get over those boundaries. Okay? Remember really quick that a boundary is for you. It's not for the narcissist. A boundary is saying, hey, this is what I'm willing to expose myself to, what I'm willing to be around. It's not limiting that person. Think of it in this quick scenario. Like, hey, it's okay if you want to cheat. Totally fine. If that's you and you want to do that, then you do you. But just know that if you cheat, you're not going to be coming home to me because I don't want to be with someone who's not willing to be loyal. That's it. I'm not limiting you. If you want to cheat, go cheat. But it's not going to be with me. Do you understand? Like, there's a difference to have a boundary that says, hey, you're not allowed to cheat versus like, hey, I'm not going to be with a cheater. It comes back on you and puts you in power for you versus trying to enforce a boundary on someone else. Now, number 4, the last one here that we talk about when we're talking through the aspect of seeing through a narcissist mask is the avoidance of deep conversations. Whew, these are the hard ones. These are the really hard ones. And even now, like, it's not like I can just sit down and have these amazing deep conversations with my wife. Like, sometimes they have to be facilitated with therapy. Sometimes they have to be walked through. Sometimes we have to have several days. Sometimes it's just all me, like having to get out of my head of actually being vulnerable. You see, narcissists avoid engaging in meaningful, deep conversations about emotions, about personal growth, about working on themselves, by introspection. Like the whole aspect of like that is too uncomfortable because vulnerability feels like death. Vulnerability brings out guilt, brings out shame. That's going to annihilate me. Therefore, I can't actually go there. Narcissist has this huge discomfort with vulnerability, with an aversion to genuine connections that go to deep levels. And oftentimes it becomes really evident in these type of situations when they're unwilling to actually engage with these. Think about it this way, like when you try to discuss your feelings, your goals, your emotional needs, he might change the topic. He might make a joke. Like he might try to dismiss the conversation altogether, change it, like focus on something else. Because the whole aspect is like, I need to avoid this so it doesn't get too personal, so it doesn't get too deep. Okay? Narcissist is going to avoid conversations to project their carefully constructed image and maintain this piece of superficial connection. I have to look and appear and act a certain way. Hopefully this makes sense. Like this is just like a quick overview of trying to give you just 4 simple tools of trying to see underneath the mask. If you want to have more tools to be able to see under this mask consistently, then please go to claritychallenge.net. The 45-day Clarity Challenge is meant to educate you in narcissistic abuse, help you have the tools to break free mentally and emotionally from this toxic person, and start to know who you are and set healthy boundaries moving forward. If I can help in any way, you can go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to help you move forward in your healing, growth, change, and development. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Would love to have you follow and just stick around for more narcissistic abuse and tips on how to keep breaking free.